It had been rumoured for some time that the Falcons weren't happy with the form of the athletic Lazard and that they would part company at the end of the year. But today's announcement has caught everyone by surprise.
I don't think that's accurate. Lazard came to the office and, as I say, said that he was unhappy or whatever. And at that stage I just said, well, you know, do you want to go home? He said yes. I said, well, that's fine. I'll take care of it right away.
Citing family problems as the reason for his return to the United States, Lazard was emphatic that there wasn't a rift between himself and Cole.
Ken and I have been on good basis, you know. Sometimes in the games, you know, I'm just up and sometimes I'm down. It's just struggling throughout the year. But no, we're fine as two people, you know, could be.
At times during this season, Lazard has shown all his skills to an enthralled audience, but they have been on the fewer more than frequent occasions.
This season to me was just up and down. I have no reason why, but no, I personally feel I can play the game and it's great. I love it, and you have seen some sensational games, and sometimes it was just bummers. You know, I can't describe the feeling. There's nothing to say about that.
With 1991 firmly in mind, the flamboyant coach of the Falcons has already pencilled in James Bullock, Jerry Everett and Michael Johnson as three of his starters, with Al Green from the Adelaide 36ers as number 4.
If we know we're picking up Everett and we certainly want Al Green here next year, then we've got a legitimate 4 players that are NBL All-Star players in Bullock and Mike Johnson, Al Green and Jerry.
But has he already signed Al Green?
Oh, we're not allowed to sign Al Green for season 1991 at this stage. It has been announced that he will be available and will be leaving Adelaide next season. I sent him down here. We've been friends. I've coached him for 4 or 5 years. We've been friends for 10 years, and I just don't think Al would play anywhere else.
Before these women began the Employment and Training Access course, they were either unemployable or had been out of the workforce for many years.
Maybe in the past, maybe a long, long time ago, and then they've raised their family, they've had their children, they've stayed at home, they're caught up in that cycle.
But now they have the skills needed to get back into the workforce. Although they are competent in literacy, mathematics and operating a computer, the most important part of the course was learning about their own culture.
Unless you know where you come from, what's in your heart, you can't go on. You've got to really know all that information before you can really strive for a lot of things.
Equipped with their graduation certificates, these women are now after a job, and most of them have big plans for the future.
I've got a voluntary job through this because they gave us the confidence to go and look for work.
I'm taking up artwork for doing Aboriginal drawings and that, and I would like to get more into sort of like fashions or something like that with it.
Well, I hope to get involved with the Aboriginal culture and teach that within the schools.
Preparations are well underway for the battle of the century.
Stairlift in history. No sooner have the transport planes unloaded, they head back to the US to reload, the pilots losing count of the days.
How long do you think you can keep this up? As long as Mr. Bush needs me to.
It's all to safeguard the world's biggest oil reserves. But, in an ironic twist, the world's being told it'll have to get by on less Saudi oil because Saudi Arabia is diverting fuel to the war machine, protecting its riches. Stephen Fennelly, National 9 News.
The union movement decision to bypass the Industrial Relations Commission to get pay rises promised in the pre-election accord with the government was announced in a belligerent statement by the ACTU president.
We will not be going near the commission because so far as we are concerned, the commission is irrelevant.
Speaking after an ACTU executive meeting, Martin Ferguson said unions would use direct negotiations with employers instead, and if necessary, they'd take industrial action.
The hit list, and I call it a hit list, will be prioritised on Monday at a meeting of ACT officers. And we'll simply say to employers, you can continue to sit on the fence But as from next Monday, we'll be knocking on your door.
There was a denial from Federal Industrial Relations Minister Peter Cook that the aggressive union stance threatened the accord.
We put a down payment on it on budget night with the tax cuts, and I wouldn't worry about the accord.
Meanwhile, still dashing across the country selling the budget, Social Security Minister Graham Richardson used the midday show to announce that he's already considering a change to one of the most controversial measures, the introduction of a $2.50 charge on prescription for pensioners, compensated for by a similar increase in the weekly pension rate and a $130 cut-off point, after which drugs are free.
What I'd like to do is find a way to identify them, verify their claim and give them a payment up front.
Laurie Oakes, Canberra.
Preparations are well underway for the battle of the century between the Knights and the Tigers, with parades and tributes a big part of Sunday's program. But there's only one thing the fans want come 4:30, and that's a Knights victory and a chance to either meet Balmain or Manly in a playoff for fifth spot on Tuesday night. For the Tigers coach Warren Ryan, he could be in the enviable position of being able to rest many of his players if Parramatta beat Manly tonight.
And if Parramatta beat Manly, of course, we don't have to beat Newcastle. In fact, it'd be a damn side advantage if we didn't, because we'd force Newcastle and Manly into a playoff on the Tuesday night. So the prospect's very interesting. I don't know how we'd handle it, because I've never been in this position before.
But a word of warning from his opposite number, an unashamed admirer, Alan McMahon.
Well, he's got to be very careful what he does there, because he's got some players that are going to need a little bit of match condition, and I don't think they're in any position to put the brake on.
And if it happens that the Knights and Manly clash in a playoff, the Sea Eagles will have the luxury of an extra 2 days rest. Has the luck gone Manly's way once again?
Yeah, let's just thank God that League's not running lotto.
In their 5 meetings to date in the Winfield Cup, Balmain and Newcastle have been able to win their respective home games, and the Knights will be hoping that trend continues. As early as this morning, there was some doubt as to the fitness of forwards Mark Sargent, Paul Marquette and David Mullane, but at training a short time ago, they had little trouble in stretching out and will take their place in the side for Sunday.
They're just wearing the bruises of a long season, but they'll be fine, I think.
This is the emotive message the people of Dudley want sent to Health Minister Peter Collins. Today they braved the cold to show their disgust for plans to sell the Dudley Old Men's Home.
They look after the men so well. I think the government's mad.
Oh, I reckon it's awful. It stinks.
Patients from the home told the crowd they were desperate to stay in Dudley.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this is what we call a home from home.
President of the Hospital Auxiliary, Nance Milligan, says plans to move some of the men to a refurbished Waratah hospital are nothing short of cruel.
They are all familiar with all the surroundings up here. As one of the ladies said, they go up to the pub. If they get lost, people know where they are and they take them home. It's just such a wonderful feeling here.
Member for Charlestown, Richard Face, told the meeting the Greiner government would be breaking an unwritten moral contract if it sold the land.
It is, yes, a moral question. It was given with the expectation that the community would have that facility forever.
A petition carrying more than 4,300 signatures was given to Mr Face, who will present it to the government later this week. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
Right from the outset, the Falcons looked in control and led by a point at half-time. The third quarter was all Newcastle.
Yes, a little bit of frustration there by Al Green. There's a quick pass to Michael Johnson.
The teamwork by the youngsters was superb. James Bullock was awesome in attack and grabbed 20 rebounds for the night. Again, the Falcons swung into attack to rattle the 36ers. Grant Kruger, much smaller than his opponents, was in everything, forcing the Adelaide side into error. At the last change, the Falcons led by 18 and the small crowd were loving every minute of this amazing performance. Al Green fired for Adelaide. Bullock and Kruger combined. Out by 23, Pearce hit back for the 36ers. But Peter Harvey sealed the win.
It was standing room only at the ISC today. Conditions were freezing, but Tigers supporters like Laurie Nichols were obviously fired up and feeling no pain. On the hill, though, it was a sea of red and blue, and anyone barracking for the black and golds made sure they were well camouflaged. The night's victorious SG Ball side inspired the crowd with a lap of honour designed to make up for the non-appearance of Balmain skipper Wayne Pearce, who was busy motivating his team and unable to accept an honorary jumper from Newcastle officials. As the reserve graders trooped off the field for the last time this year, a festive mood took over. Real-life nights kept the crowd entertained with a vigorous display of medieval combat. Singer Sue Cruikshank gave A New Night's Song its first public airing.
And it was a spirited fight back in the second half that led to the thrilling 16-14 win and a chance to create their own piece of rugby league history in a play-off for fifth spot. And it was Jeff Doyle and Ashley Gordon who turned the game for the Knights in the second half. A full report on the match later in the bulletin. The shining knight on the white charger revved up the crowd, and the daylight fireworks display had them at fever pitch for the do-or-die battle. A loss and it was all over for the season. A win and Balmain and the Knights would do it all again Tuesday night. Balmain were missing plenty of stars who could only look on, but Paul Sirenen took on the workload, while Steve Blocker-Roach put the show on the road. With a fierce breeze at their backs, 4 points weren't going to be enough to keep the Knights out, and Robinson turned on the razzle-dazzle to stretch the lead. Behind 8-0 at the break, the crowd was pretty quiet, but the Knights opened better in the second half. Gordon was successful with a penalty to get the Knights rolling, and then Flash Ash went into overdrive. All, and 7 minutes later, Doyle and Gordon worked their special magic once again. Blocker Roach and Mark Glanville came together with Roach winning on a TKO. And then controversy as the Knights hit the lead. With time running out, Stewart gave away a penalty and Balmain crossed. A great conversion from the sideline made it a 2-point ball game, but the sirens sounded to ecstatic cheers from the masses, and the Knights will venture to Parramatta Stadium Tuesday evening to do it all again.
The preliminary findings into this latest study into the CBD were released to coincide with Geography Awareness Week. Stephen Arnold surveyed 200 businesses in the inner city precinct and examined pre- and post-quake conditions as part of his honours thesis.
A lot of the problems that are resulting nowadays can be attributed to the fact that the earthquake trends beforehand weren't very good in Newcastle, so it's really an accentuation of the problems beforehand rather than the earthquake causing a lot of the problems.
Major concerns highlighted by most respondents were a perceived lack of parking and the threat of suburban shopping centres. Concerns over parking were offset, however, by a decline in the use of council car parks in recent months. Arnold says the earthquake has prompted some fears and concerns which may be hard to overcome.
Well, the earthquake, for some people, has created fear in that people aren't going to use the CBD because they've got an image that it is got areas of destruction. There are still scaffolding around. Basically, a fear that there's still danger in the city, and that's why people are not using it.
The tragedy happened opposite the Webber home. This drain was installed when the road was tarred earlier this year. Police say the toddler managed to get out of the house and across the road. His 9-year-old brother, who had been playing with others nearby, found him floating face down in the water. A Lake Macquarie Council engineer has been instructed to carry out an emergency report into scouring in the drain, where stormwater flows through the pipe across Todmorden Road. It has formed a large area where water can easily collect. Mayor Ivan Welsh, who has already inspected the site, says the drain is similar to around 1,000 others in Lake Macquarie.
I went over and had a look at the area and spoke with the family. It's a tragic thing. I don't think there's anything that anybody can take blame for. So we're just as upset by it as I think the people that are out there, and I'm sure that the whole city would send their sympathy to the family.
And what do you hope to find out with the engineer's report?
Oh, just to know that we're doing what we should be doing and that everything's okay.
And when do you hope to be able to discuss the findings of the report?
I wouldn't think there'll be any findings. I think it's just a report that the engineers will give me and that I'll take into consideration.
Police answered a call to the Oz-designed furniture display warehouse on Hunter Street West at about 2 p.m. Staff told them the robbery had taken just seconds. By the time they knew what had happened, the assailant was long gone. Police spoke to the victim of the robbery inside the store. He was too shaken to speak publicly, but police said he appeared to have escaped the ordeal without serious injury.
We are taking the person to the hospital just for a check-up at this stage, but that'll be up to the hospital staff.
The 32-year-old employee was carrying a calico bank bag through a rear roller door. When he turned to close it before taking the money to a waiting car, the thief struck, knocking him down onto his hands and knees. Another employee in the warehouse at the time told police it was over in seconds.
Well, I just saw Jones running across after a thud and went down, checked him and ran after him and he's gone.
Police have few clues. They're not even sure if the attacker was a man or a woman. The rear car park is surrounded by a wire mesh fence topped with barbed wire. Although patrol cars circled the scene within minutes of the incident, the thief apparently slipped through the net.
The Knights today resorted to an amber anaesthetic to dull the physical and emotional pain caused by last night's clash with the Tigers. No one could blame them. The game was one of the most ferocious of the year, and some bruising forward encounters all but rocked the foundations of Parramatta Stadium. The Knights had the better of the first half and were unlucky not to notch a try from this inspired piece of Tony Kemp brilliance. As it was, the Knights were denied even a penalty and play moved downfield to enable Wayne Pearce to scramble over. Ashley Gordon's boot kept the Knights in the game as the war of attrition continued into the second half. It wasn't until 3 minutes from full time that a Steve O'Brien intercept ended the Knights' crusade. The players were shattered by the loss, but coach Alan McMahon, although disappointed, was justifiably proud of his charges.
I think the people that were there tonight, and particularly the people from Newcastle, witnessed a game that was, I think I'll remember for a long time. It was a terrific performance from our guys, as was theirs, because we were showing the badges as both teams were from Sunday's contest. And it was a great game, and I'm very proud of them. I think the city of Newcastle can be very proud of their football team.
League Chief John Quayle was also impressed.
I think that they should individually be proud of themselves, their club, certainly their city, and I think rugby league. I think to achieve what they've achieved in 3 years in the toughest rugby league competition in the world is a magnificent feat, and they should all be congratulated.
And their supporters can't wait for the start of the 91 season.
There are 14 hearing impaired students at the school, ranging from the moderately to the profoundly deaf. The infants and primary students are from the Hunter region and have been part of an integration program for the past year. Going to class, sharing sports and play is all part of a day's work for any student, but some have to try harder just to communicate in the ways others take for granted. Robin, what's the aim of today's Awareness Day?
The aim, I guess, would be to introduce all the children in our local school to the problems that our children have, language-wise, hearing-wise, just to give them an introduction to what our children have to put up with during the day at school.
The school holds regular sign classes and some entertainment was added to get the message across. Lambton High School will be conducting a drop-in centre for the remainder of Deafness Awareness Week. But these Kotara South students had the last word.
Yeah.